but I'm not going to give you any idea.
Queuing all the way down to London Bridge. We've missed our headlines, but it's just such detail that we've not actually... Your Honour! All hail the King! God save the King! God save the King! God save the King! God save the King! God bless you. The coffin will be taken to Edinburgh Airport at 5 o'clock in the afternoon of Tuesday the 13th of September. From there it will be flown to London, accompanied by...
This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service.
Witnessed by King Charles and the Queen Consort Camilla.
This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service.
In silence. The route will take in Queen's Gardens, the Mall, Horse Gardens.
This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service.
Parliament Square and New Palace Yard. King Charles and members...
This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service.
A small and personal procession. But during that procession there will be guns fired at Hyde Park and Big Ben will toll. The Queen will lie in state at Westminster Hall for 4 full days after a short service by the Archbishop of Canterbury. The lying in state will end on September the 19th, the day of the Queen's funeral. The lying in state will end at 6:30 on the morning of September the 19th, the day the Queen's funeral takes place at 11 o'clock in the morning. So that gives you a little bit of detail about how the week will unfold. Let's go to Buckingham Palace. Rebecca Jones has been watching events there for us today. The King has now left Buckingham Palace. We saw the cortege, small cortege, leave the palace about 3/4 of an hour ago, Rebecca, and I noted that there was a rather impromptu stop on the Mall. Do we know what happened?
Yes, you're absolutely right. It's been a very busy day here for the new king. He travels straight to Buckingham Palace from St James's Palace after that accession council where he was formally proclaimed the king, and he arrived about 12:15, and as you said, he left, Christian, just after 6 o'clock, to the delight of the crowds who have just grown and grown and grown during the course of the day. Far more people here today than there have been in the last couple of days. I should say most of them here to pay their respects to the Queen. That much was clear by the number of floral tributes that there were. Lots and lots of people clutching bouquets with drawings attached, messages attached. I was particularly struck by one from a little girl called Holly, who was 7, and she'd written, "Sorry that the Queen has died and gone to heaven. I liked her corgis." But as you say, the crowd were rewarded with a glimpse of the King just after 6 o'clock. He didn't stop as he did yesterday and speak to the crowds outside the palace, but carried on up the Mall and then spoke to some of the people who had been waiting there, 6, 7, 8, 9 deep, before carrying on to Clarence House, where he met up with the Queen Consort Camilla, and there he did another impromptu walkabout.
Rebecca Jones, thank you very much for that. Let's go to Charlotte Gallagher, who is also there, but a bit further down the Mall, around the area where the King stopped just a short time ago, Charlotte?
He did indeed, and I tell you, as soon as that car emerged from the gates of Buckingham Palace and people saw that the royal standard was on top of the car, so they knew that King Charles was in there, the cheers were enormous. People have waited all day, some people. People have come down from Newcastle, from Swindon, met someone from Germany that had come over just for this moment. So people were so excited to see the new King and also, importantly, pay respects to Queen Elizabeth. Lots of children here today. Some of them told me about how they saw her with Paddington at the Jubilee and how they loved that so much, and that was their real abiding memory of Queen Elizabeth. And you talked earlier about floral tributes, and we've got some very, very special ones here from florist, professional florist. What's your name?
Natalie.
Natalie, and just, this is absolutely beautiful.
Oh, actually young Emma made this, which is really nice. So yeah, we all love the Queen and obviously all the royals, and we just wanted to make something really special to bring down.
And the colours particularly chosen for the Queen?
Yeah, we've done a whole display in our shop just so people can come down and pay respects.
And whereabouts did you come down from?
Rose Hill in Carlshorton.
So were you going to come down anyway, or was this specifically to come to Buckingham Palace to lay these flowers?
Just to lay the flowers, yeah.
And what did the Queen mean to you?
Oh, absolutely everything. We were talking about this yesterday, weren't we, Steph? That it's childhood. It's our childhood, and now I feel like I'm going to get older because she's gone, if that makes sense.
Totally, I feel like that as well. And it's someone that, even if you didn't think about her all the time, she was always there.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
This stable figure.
Another grandmother.
Yeah.
Another grandmother.
And you're hoping to lay these outside?
Yeah, I don't think we'll get any closer, but as long as we can lay them nearby. We've got a few from customers as well that have asked us to take some down for them.
Oh, that's lovely. And I know you did want to see the King, but unfortunately you didn't quite make it in time.
No, because we were all at work, so didn't quite make it, but I'm sure we will another time.
Yeah, well, you know, it shows how much people think about the royal family, that even if you're working, it's a Saturday and you've come down on Saturday night because you want to pay your respects.
Yeah, it had to be done.
Yeah, and let's talk to some of the other florists, star florists. What's your name?
Steph.
So you made this gorgeous bouquet.
Yeah, so like Nat said, it's just one of those things that we're all really proud to have someone who's reigned so long in our country, and she was a constant, and seeing my mum so upset kind of brought it home because she's been a part of all of our lives, and then to know that my nieces and nephews will now grow up with kings, it's just so special to all of us. So,
and like a few people have said, we will never see a queen again, will we? It's going to be kings now.
It's just one of those things, but as sad as it is, it's also a new moment, so we're here to celebrate that as well.
And I noticed you put thistles in the bouquet. Is that because the Queen loves Scotland so much?
Yeah, so it's just a little nod to that as well. So yeah, but Emma made it, so I can't take credit, Emma made it.
And you were saying customers have come in and they wanted to lay flowers here, and you've brought them down with you?
Yeah, so we've had quite a few people come in today and buy some to lay down, and it's lovely. It's just lovely.
And what did you think when you heard the news about Queen Elizabeth?
It was awful, wasn't it? It was just so sad. But we're just paying our respect in the way we know.
We've all grown up with her, haven't we? It's like she's been. We've seen so many things happen through her life.
It's, as you said earlier, she was just always there, and it just, like, when I think about it now, I still don't believe it's real almost. It still hasn't hit, and I'm really excited that we've got a new king, but it's just knowing that our queen, like, we probably won't ever have a queen again. It's really sad.
And he came out to huge cheers, so many people wanting to see that, because obviously for him, he's grieving his mother, but he's got to start this new job. He's got to grieve in public as well.
It must be really difficult for him.
Yeah. Was it worth coming down there just to...
Oh, definitely,
yeah. 100%, yeah. Even just for the atmosphere, that's what's the nicest thing about Britain, is regardless of anything or the diversity, everyone just comes together as one. So I'm very proud to be British.
And I'd say that actually the diversity in the crowds, people from all over the UK, all over the world, coming here to pay their respects to the Queen, but also really to celebrate her life. That's been a big theme from the people I've spoken to. I mentioned Paddington, lots of children saying how she made them laugh, which I think is so special, and I'm sure something that she would have loved.
Yes, indeed so. It's very important, actually, a point just one of your guests was making there, that we will have to get used to having a king for maybe many, many years, because the line of succession, of course, flows through William and George. But it is worth pointing out that the Queen gave royal assent in 2013 that meant both sons and daughters of any future UK monarch would have an equal right to the throne. So were George to have a daughter, we could have a queen again, which is an important detail, and obviously makes reference to the point that the Queen wanted women to have that role in future life. Let's talk a little bit about King Charles and his walkabout this afternoon, which we've been hearing about. I want to make some reference to the car, because there's been a very purposeful choice of this car. It's a Rolls-Royce Phantom 6. There are two of these in the royal household. If anyone's been to Sandringham, you'll know that there is a car museum at Sandringham with many of the cars that the royal family own, but this one has been picked for a purpose, because you'll see as it pulls past that you can see the king, and he wants to be seen, of course. He wants to be able to speak to the public, as we saw with the walkabout yesterday, and be seen as he's driving around at this very important time. This particular one, in fact, has been in the household for 40 years, and it was used by the new Princess of Wales when she travelled to Westminster Abbey to marry William. So you will have seen that car before, but you'll see very shortly it suddenly parks up, and then the King hops out of it to meet some of those well-wishers on the barriers. And this happened, don't forget, about a few minutes after the two princes, Harry and William, reconciled at Windsor, were walking around doing a similar thing. So in their grief, the royal family making time for the public, and as you've just been hearing from Charlotte, people have come from all over, not just from all over the country, but people making their way here from all over the world to Buckingham Palace to be part of this, to share in a national moment, and of course to thank the Queen for her extraordinary reign, 70 years of service that she gave us. So that was King Charles III, just walking around not very long ago. Meanwhile, as I say, in Windsor, the new Prince and Princess of Wales and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have appeared together in a surprise show of unity this evening. We didn't know that the Sussexes were going to be there, but they walked down the long walk together, taking floral tribute, meeting members of the public outside the castle. Our royal correspondent Daniela Ralph has more.
Unexpected and unannounced, nobody had seen this coming. After the rancour and the conflict, the fallout and the friction, this was a family reunited in grief. The new Prince and Princess of Wales, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, together in Windsor to view the flowers and see those who had come to mourn the Queen. All eyes were on them. The brothers have barely spoken to each other for 2 years, but today something clearly shifted. Harry and Meghan walked down one side of the crowd on Windsor's long walk up to the castle, chatting, receiving flowers and condolences. On the other side were William and Catherine, doing much the same, particularly focusing on families and children who had come out to remember the Queen. It's hard to imagine quite how this moment came about. Perhaps the public outpouring of love for the Queen and the weight of responsibility their father now bears caused Harry and William to find a peace that had previously been hard to reach. It was an extraordinary moment of solidarity that seemed to please all those there to witness it. In her death, the Queen appears to have helped heal a damaging rift as the royal family comes together to say their farewell. Daniela Ralph, BBC News.
Yes, It's a walkabout that lasted a good half an hour, and at times the Prince is in deep conversation with people on the barricades. Now, Prince William, the Prince of Wales, has paid tribute to the Queen today in a statement, so let me read that to you. On Thursday, the world lost an extraordinary leader whose commitment to the country, the realms and the Commonwealth was absolute. So much will be said in the days ahead about the meaning of her historic reign. I, however, have lost a grandmother, and while I will grieve her loss, I also feel incredibly grateful. I have had the benefit of the Queen's wisdom and reassurance into my 5th decade. My wife has had 20 years of her guidance and support. My 3 children have got to spend holidays with her and will create memories that will last their whole lives. She was by my side at my happiest moments, and she was by my side during the saddest days of my life. I knew this day would come, but it will be some time before the reality of life without Granny will truly feel real. I thank her for the kindness she showed my family and me, and I thank her on behalf of my generation for providing an example of service and dignity in public life that was from a different age, but always relevant to us all. My grandmother famously said that grief was the price we pay for love. All of the sadness we will feel in the coming weeks will be testament to the love we felt for our extraordinary Queen. I will honour her memory by supporting my father, the King, in every way I can. The statement issued by the new Prince of Wales earlier this afternoon. Well, the Queen's 3 youngest children, Princess Anne and Princes Andrew and Edward, along with their families, remain at Balmoral this evening, and today they were at a church service, after which they took time to read and admire the growing floral tributes outside the castle gates. From there, Sarah Campbell reports.
It's not long now until the late Queen leaves this beautiful part of Scotland forever, a place which was so close to her heart. Before she starts her final journey tomorrow, people travelled here to say their own goodbyes. The Queen's family was on the minds of many of those here today, and this afternoon the castle gates opened, and in convoy 3 of the Queen's children, Prince Andrew, Prince Edward, Princess Anne and their families, made their way to the local church for a private service.
During her lifetime, the Queen talked about the strength and comfort she found through her faith, and during the long summer months here on the Balmoral estate, she worshipped here at Crathy Kirk. In its familiar surroundings, her family came together today to pray.
It was a short service, and afterwards the 3 families left the vehicles and walked across the bridge over the River Dee to the people who had come to pay their respects.
This is a family event, and I just feel incredibly solemn that they've got such a solemn time ahead of them as a family.
It's important that he's aware, because of course he'll only know really a king rather than a queen.
Yeah.
It's so sad, you know, to see her go, and it'll be look so different. It's just amazing. She was such an amazing woman. She did so much.
It is still just 2 days since the Queen died, and the emotion was clear as family members comforted one another, taking time to read some of the hundreds of messages left at the castle gates in tribute to their mother and grandmother. Before returning back behind castle walls, they stopped and looked back. Prince Andrew, in a rare public appearance, led a wave, which was acknowledged by the crowd. A mutual recognition of the loss the family and the nation is coming to terms with.
Sarah Campbell reporting there on the events at Balmoral. Now, Charles III became monarch immediately after the death of his mother. He was formally proclaimed king today at St James's Palace in London, in a ceremony which dates back centuries and which was televised for the first time in its history. The death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II was officially confirmed before the new monarch swore his oath. King Charles paid tribute to his late mother, saying her reign had been unequalled in dedication, duration and devotion. Our royal correspondent Nicholas Witchell was watching today's events.
In the setting of London's original royal palace at St James's, the Accession Council, Britain's political leaders past and present with other notable figures, there to pledge their allegiance to Britain's new head of state.
God save the King.
God save the King. The King joined the Accession Council gathered in the palace's throne room to make his declaration.
It is my most sorrowful duty to announce to you the death of my beloved mother, the Queen. I know how deeply you, the entire nation, and I think I may say the whole world, sympathize with me in the irreparable loss we've all suffered. My mother's reign was unequal in its duration, its dedication, and its devotion. Even as we grieve, we give thanks for this most faithful life. I am deeply aware of this great inheritance and of the duties and heavy responsibilities of sovereignty, which have now passed to me. In taking up these responsibilities, I shall strive to follow the inspiring example I have been set in upholding constitutional government and to seek the peace, harmony and prosperity of the peoples of these islands and of the Commonwealth realms and territories throughout the world. And in carrying out the heavy task that has been laid upon them, and to which I now dedicate what remains to me of my life, I pray for the guidance and help of Almighty God.
Concerning the security of the Church of Scotland.
The King took a centuries-old oath to preserve the position of the Church of Scotland.
I, Charles III, by the grace of God, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of my other realms and territories, King, Defender of the Faith, do faithfully promise and swear that I shall inviolably maintain and preserve the settlement of the true Protestant religion as established by the laws made in Scotland.
Watched by the heir to the throne, Prince William, Prince of Wales, and Camilla the Queen Consort, he signed the oath Charles R. Charles Rex, King. And then a moment of pageantry. From a balcony, the Garter King of Arms issued the proclamation of the new king's reign.
Whereas it has pleased Almighty God to call to his mercy our late sovereign lady, Queen Elizabeth II, of blessed and glorious memory, by whose decease the crown of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland is solely and rightfully come to the Prince Charles Philip Arthur George. We, therefore, do now hereby, with one voice and consent of tongue and heart, publish and proclaim that the Prince Charles Philip Arthur George is now, by the death of our late sovereign of happy memory, become our only lawful and rightful liege lord, Charles III.
The King's Guard gave 3 cheers.
3 cheers for His Majesty the King! Hip hip! Hip hip! Hip hip!
Following centuries-old tradition, the proclamation was also issued in the City of London. It will be repeated in Britain's other national capitals tomorrow.
Hooray! Hip hip!
Affirming and proclaiming the reign of Charles III to all corners of his kingdom. Nicholas Witchell, BBC News.
Yeah, as Nicholas says, such a compelling day. Echoes of history, the protocol and the pageantry mixed with the new. Never before have we seen an accession council declare a new king. We'll have plenty more of the day's events surrounding the death of Queen Elizabeth II, but let's take this opportunity just to look at some of the other day's events, starting with Ukraine, because after months of deadlock, the counter-offensive against Russia is starting to gather momentum, with more territory recaptured in the south and the east of the country. Ukrainian troops are said to have entered Kupiansk, a railway city that has acted as a key logistics centre for Russian forces in the northeast since February. In some areas, the Russian retreat is said to have been a rout, and there are reports that the Russians have now pulled out from around Izium. That's just there to the northeast on the map as you look at it. Moscow says it is moving out to regroup elsewhere. From central Ukraine, our senior international correspondent Olga reports.
Ukraine's rapid counter-offensive is gaining ground. Its troops taking some casualties, but also taking territory on several fronts, catching Russian forces off guard, even surprising some Ukrainians. This footage was filmed by Ukrainian forces. We can't document the battles ourselves. For now, journalists have been banned from the front lines. Kyiv determined to win the information war. And images of victory from the eastern city of Kupiansk. This was a key logistics hub for President Putin's men. In some areas, Russia's front line has collapsed. And liberation has come. Everything is okay, troops tell locals in the town of Balaklia. For 6 months we prayed you would come, she says. Natalia, too, endured months under occupation by the Russians, who she calls fascists. She and her husband Volodymyr were freed by the counter-offensive, but still show signs of their trauma.
When you saw the Ukrainian soldiers, when you realized they had come to free you, what was that moment like? What were your feelings?
We thought we would never see them. And then our boys came. And they were so handsome. So beautiful. Especially compared to the fascists. I didn't know what to do with them, if I should hug them or hold their hands. I touched them, and I was very happy.
Ukrainian social media has been flooded with patriotic videos. The national anthem, now a battle hymn for troops who believe that momentum is swinging their way. But the Russians still hold around a fifth of Ukraine, including the city of Kherson. This was the resistance on the streets back in March. It was the first major Ukrainian city to fall after the invasion. We managed to reach a woman still living there who says the Russians are starting to lie low. For her protection, we aren't naming her, and her words are spoken by a BBC producer.
Over the past 2 or 3 days, the military seem to have quietened down a bit. They are less visible in cafes and restaurants. If street fighting starts, it will be very dangerous. I want to see our army here and thank them. I want to see the victory.
Scenes like this are cathartic for Ukraine and reassuring for its Western backers. No one imagines a swift end to the war. But the Ukrainians have now shown they can beat the Russians in battle, not just outmaneuver them. Orla Giran, BBC News, Central Ukraine.
The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has said that Pakistan needs massive financial support following devastating floods that have marooned vast parts of the country. On the second day of his visit to Pakistan, he described the situation as unimaginable. More than 1,400 people have died and millions have been forced to flee their homes. The authorities in Sindh province have made further breaches to the country's largest freshwater lake to prevent floodwater breaking its embankments. There are ancient ruins in the south of Sindh near the Indus River that are around 4,500 years old and are considered among the best preserved urban settlements in South Asia. Our correspondent Sahar Bala has been to visit the site.
I'm in the southeastern province of Sindh right now, where I got to know that the site of Mohenjo-daro has been badly damaged. As soon as I reached here, I saw a lot of laborers working here, trying to repair whatever the rain has damaged. What I was told was that in mid-August, it rained more than usual. It rained around 1,400 millimeter, which is more than this place has ever received since it was discovered in 1922, which was around 100 years ago. If you look at this site, the protective layer, which is the outer layer of the stupa, has been totally damaged, but the original layer, the original stupa, is completely fine. I spoke with a few experts around here as well, and what they told me was that what protected this space was the fact that these ancient drains, which is around 4,500 years old, actually helped the rain to drain out of this place. It did not take any machinery, it did not take any laborers to help drain out the water, which is a marvel in itself. At the moment, the biggest worry for the people is, especially for the administration, is to protect this place and to bring it back to how it originally was. Most of the stupas around here have 5 layers of protection around them, and if one of them has been broken, it really jeopardizes the entire situation for this area. It is the oldest site possible in Sindh, and to protect it is the #1 worry for the government right now. And what I've been told so far is that they want to make as much reparations over here and to repair it as better as it used to look before.
Sahar Bala reporting from Pakistan. Such a huge effort still required, of course, millions of people needing help there in Pakistan. Let's return then to the day's events here in the UK. Another day of huge crowds around the palaces, Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle, to pay their respects to the late Queen Elizabeth. Let me show you the scene tonight at Buckingham Palace. The Royal Standard is flying there, I think, but we know that King Charles is about to leave London and will be in Scotland tomorrow for the procession as the Queen's coffin leaves Balmoral. He will be transferred to Hollywood House, and of course the Queen's children still at Balmoral. They too have been on walkabout today, meeting some of the crowds outside Balmoral, reading some of the floral tributes, and of course today we've been following events at Windsor Castle, where we've seen the 2 princes, Harry and William, the new Prince of Wales, with his brother, on walkabout for about half an hour. Quite moving to see the 2 brothers together, and a sense of unity among what is a very sad moment, of course, for the family. The crowd's just starting to thin out a little this evening as the sun goes down. Our correspondent Lucy Manning has been there throughout the day.
If ever there was a moment for a child to live through history, to understand kings and queens, to mark the moment one era transitioned into another, this was it. Just a few hundred from the crowds of thousands allowed outside St James's Palace to hear the new king proclaimed. The youngest, Orla Elizabeth, 11 weeks old.
It's history, isn't it? And I think by bringing her down today, it's something that we can talk to her about. She'll obviously be spoken to about the Queen because she's named after her. And then it's something that she can then pass on to her kids.
So what do you make of King Charles so far?
I think he's been absolutely incredible, really, and doing all of that, what he did yesterday, the day after his mother died, it takes guts, and I thought he was absolutely magnificent.
A real sense of trying to involve the people, his subjects, to bring them along with the change, knitted by their grandma, Lottie and Isabel, who brought their queens.
Why have you brought those down today, girls?
Because King Charles, my queen,
We went to put flowers down for the Queen.
It's a moment of history. We wanted the girls to come and pay their respects and see the new king. It will be a changing era, but I think the public are behind Charles and King Charles, and we'll support him all the way.
Not everyone had the best view, but we are all living through, experiencing this new era.
Thankfully today I'm not crying because yesterday I was crying very much. So,
what did you make of the proclamation ceremony?
I mean, like it's emotional. Oh my God, Prince Charles is the king and the Queen is not there anymore.
Buckingham Palace was enveloped by people, mournful, celebratory, a swirl of changing emotions.
There are vast crowds, 7, 8 people deep on both sides of the Mall. Everyone just trying to get a glimpse of the new king.
The royal car slowing so that everyone here could say they'd seen King Charles.
It was worth the wait.
Brilliant.
How long did you wait for?
We think we're pretty about 3 hours. So,
why did you want to come now?
I just wanted to be part of this. Just so important, just to be part of the moment.
And what do you make of the new king?
I like him. I like Charlie. He's good. Yeah, I really like Charlie.
Rufus, you just saw the king.
Yeah.
How was that?
Amazing. I won't forget it, yeah.
A pilgrimage to the palace, flowers to remember the Queen, cheers to welcome the king. Lucy Manning, BBC News.
Yeah, plenty of crowds out on the Mall this afternoon. It's just some detail that we've had today. Of course, we've had the proclamation here in London and at other parts around the country. We'll come to the Commonwealth in a second, but we know the King will want to be there in person in the nations, and so we understand he's going to Belfast on Tuesday. There are details of his visit to Wales still to come, and of course he will be in Scotland tomorrow when they move the coffin to Holyrood Palace. So the King going to be very busy over the course of the next week. As I say, it did take place, the proclamation, not just in London, but also in places around the Commonwealth and in Ottawa in Canada, where he replaces the Queen, of course, as head of state. Queen Elizabeth made no fewer than 22 state visits there during her reign, more than any other country. Our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, reports now on how the Canadians are remembering their Queen.
This morning in Ottawa, bearskin hats and a bugle, a solemn ceremony to confirm a king.
His Royal Highness Prince Charles Philip Arthur George is now, by the death of our late sovereign, Charles III.
A new head of state. Canada, one of 14 Commonwealth countries, former colonies, which still keep the crown.
Thank you again for your welcome. It's very good to be home.
For 7 decades, she drew the crowds here. Old and new generations gathering to greet her, displaying affection for her and for what she loved. From corgi fan clubs in the capital, Ottawa, to fast horses at the Calgary Stampede in the west, Prince Philip enjoying himself too, always at her side. In the east of this former colony, visits to 18th century villages. The Queen crisscrossed the world's second largest mass many times, visiting every single province and territory, embracing Canadian culture, including its national sport.
I think it's absolutely wonderful. She really touched the spirit of what being a Canadian is all about.
But often, the Queen was on thin ice.
The separatist extremists were making their promised demonstration.
Sometimes the people who showed up came to protest. This was the scene in the mainly French-speaking province of Quebec in 1964, when separatist sentiment was at its highest, anger over English domination. The Queen knew it, never showed it, steering a middle course.
Ottawa is a small capital.
From her very first visit as Queen in 1957, she always spoke both of Canada's official languages.
Veuillez vous seated. Veuillez vous asseoir.
Better than even some of Canada's politicians. Another difficult legacy of a darker imperial past.
The Indians were so delighted to meet the Great White Queen.
For Canada's Indigenous community, the monarchy also symbolizes dispossession, discrimination, horrific abuses Canada's leaders are still confronting. This morning's ceremony to welcome the King sends another signal. The monarch's representative, Governor-General Mary Simon, is the first Indigenous person to hold this role. Other change could be coming. Recent polls show only a small minority of Canadians feel the monarchy still matters in their lives. But for now, it's still a constant. Lise Doucette, BBC News, Ottawa.
Well, the Queen also travelled widely across the UK throughout her long reign, and it's thought that nearly a third of the country saw or even met her during her lifetime. One of the places she visited a number of times was Bolton in Lancashire, and our special correspondent Jeremy Cook has been to the town to speak to people who met and admired her.
Away from the capital and the palace and the crowds, a nation's quiet grief. Quiet, but profoundly felt.
She's beautiful. There'll never be another one like her, will there? I mean, tears just stream down my face, and you've got to believe it, but it's difficult, isn't it? Yeah.
There's sadness here, of course, but gratitude too. So many lives touched by their queen. Telegrams and cards that mean so much.
I got one, a special one for my diamond wedding. It's nice with that Buckingham Palace envelope. Yeah. We treasure that, we treasure that.
Her Majesty the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh leave Bolton Town Hall.
Bolton, in our northern heartlands, a royal destination over several decades. In 2009, it was Warburton's bakery. A short visit, but lifelong memories.
She made me feel exceedingly important, and that's what I remember about her. She was all about me on that day.
Would it be ridiculous of me to say that that moment, that exchange, actually changed your life?
It did, yes, because I'm still talking about it 13 years later. And, you know, I've met the Queen, and I remember she walked away and she turned back to me, she said, "Keep up the good work." And I said to my colleague who was side of said, "Wow."
The passing of a monarch is a loss felt in all corners of the country.
In offering our deepest condolences and sympathies in passing of our late Queen Elizabeth II.
In every one of our communities.
She was not just the Queen, she was our Queen, Queen for all communities, whichever faith you were from. In particular, I'd like to sort of pass my condolences from the community of Makkah Mosque and the community as a whole. She was our Queen, and we deeply gonna miss her.
Al, the bus driver, is a proud monarchist.
Good to see you. On your break.
His patriotic outfit, a heartfelt tribute.
I think the whole world is going to miss her. Really, the whole world is going to miss her. They are. What can we do? We can move on, and as I say, support our new king.
Take a moment there.
Karen is all about helping and supporting Bolton's younger generation. She knows the inspiration that the Queen has given, especially on her visits to this town.
It makes the community feel like they matter. As individuals, as a community, as a town, that, you know, we're not just a place forgotten up in the north when the Queen comes to see us, so really, really important.
Last word to Tilly, a personal tribute across the generations.
Thank you for looking after the country and caring. Hope that you rest in peace.
Jeremy Cook, BBC News, Bolton.
Well, books of condolence have been set up at numerous locations around the UK. Our correspondent Eunice Muller, not far from Bolton, went to one of those places, Manchester Cathedral, to meet some of the people who've gathered there.
The late Queen Elizabeth II visited Manchester many times during those moments of celebration, joy, but also during its darkest hour in the aftermath after that terror attack on the Manchester arena. And over the past day or two, we've seen thousands and thousands of people come through the doors here of Manchester Cathedral to sign that book of condolence, but also to light a candle if they wish to do so. So let's have a quick chat with Julie Ann McCulloch and her family. You've travelled across from Stockport, haven't you? Why did you want to be here today?
The Queen has been a steady force in our world and in our community for so long, and for all of my life. And I wanted to come and just write a message. I wanted to tell her, even though she's never going to read it, that she was a woman of faith, a woman of integrity, that she cared about people. And she cared about them at happy times and at sad times, and she was never frightened to have a conversation with people and to share sorrow with them.
Many people here will have chosen their words carefully. For you, your background, you were telling me before, you're Northern Irish, and that's another reason why you wanted to be here.
Very much so. When politicians were frightened to say things, she was happy to say things. She kept politics out and she talked about people. She cared about our stories and she wanted to heal division instead of allowing division to continue.
You brought your daughter here as well. Sophia, let me have a quick chat with you. The Queen meant a lot to you, didn't she?
Yeah, because I was a brownie and she was a brownie as well, so I feel like it's something that I want to do when I'm older.
And you wrote a message, didn't you?
Yeah.
Tell me what you wrote.
I wrote something like, I was very sad that she passed away, but she was a kind, caring woman that looked after everyone and brownies, because she's a very special woman in my heart because she's a brownie and I'm a brownie.
Sophie, you couldn't have put it better. There'd be so many people who'd be saying exactly the same thing. Let's have a quick chat to Dad Jamie as well.
Jamie, you were a bit reluctant to have a chat with me originally, but actually you have written a message and you really did want to emphasise that, didn't you?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've heard a lot of, and you know, there's been a lot of words said, is just steadfastness and the dignity in which she performed her role, and it was just constant in my life. That's something that we've always known, but I think for me what was important, not just her service to our country and to other nations, but the way that she spoke about her faith was a main part of how she felt that she had the strength to carry out that role. You know, in the Queen's lifetime there were many ups and many downs, but actually the way that she carried herself and the way that she continued to treat others, as Julianne had said, through those situations. And I think that was important for me as a person of faith myself, even her Christmas messages, but I think most importantly it was the way that actually she acted that faith through her life. And I think that was obvious, not just to us, but I think to people across the world, and that's why it was really important for me to come today with our family, but into a place of worship, and to be able to kind of give thanks for that and appreciation for how that lived through her life, and she really did live out her faith through her life.
Okay, Jamie, Sophia and Julia, thanks very much for joining me
today. Now the late Queen was actually here just over 12 months ago. At that time she was visiting politicians as she would do, but also ordinary members of the public, and listening to their stories after during the pandemic and how that had affected them. And I just want to sort of mention one message that was written before in the Book of Condolence. She was, that person wrote, loyal to the end.
Eunice Muller there. That little girl was right. She was very involved with the Brownies and the Guides. In fact, she was a member of the first Buckingham Palace Guides in 1937, later became the patron of Girl Guiding in the country, so she was very involved and very interested in the Brownies and the Girl Guides. Now, the Houses of Parliament convened today for special sessions to mark the death of the Queen, and members of Parliament have been swearing allegiance to the King as the new head of state. From Westminster, Damien Grammaticus reports.
This is a time of change and continuity too. Written in Westminster's stones, King's past, as a new one ascends at the apex of things.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law, so help me God.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be...
MPs didn't have to make a new pledge today, but those that chose to could also choose the form it took.
According to law, so help me God.
I do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law.
So even in this time of mourning, political life moves forward. New king with his new prime minister and her new cabinet. The tone relaxed, almost familiar. A former prime minister says the king has been preparing for this moment.
I had audiences with Prince Charles when Queen Elizabeth II was still on the throne, because he wanted to start thinking about how to conduct those audiences. And from what I saw, he would be brilliant at that job, brilliant at listening, brilliant at asking questions, giving wise advice and sage counsel. I mean, this has probably been the longest apprenticeship in history.
Your Majesty.
Ushered in next, Sir Keir Starmer with praise for the new king's first address.
I thought his speech yesterday was fantastic,
Who did you? Oh, that's encouraging.
It was so reassuring.
So reassuring, he said.
Really fancy. Far too long.
Then the Liberal Democrat leader. He gave condolences and said he hoped to discuss shared interests with the king.
We'd love to talk to you about some issues on the environment and climate change and so forth, but can I first of all offer my sincere condolences? Thank you very much.
And finally, the Scottish National Party's leader in Westminster. In the coming days, the king will tour the nation. Edinburgh, Cardiff and Belfast. The Prime Minister will accompany him as the nation prepares for the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. Damon Grammaticus, BBC News, Westminster.
Very busy day for the new king. That is it from me this evening. Lucy Hawkins will be here very shortly. But as she takes the seat, I'm going to play you an interview that we did just a short while ago with David Leakey, who has held the position of Black Rod, formerly Black Rod. That's the monarch's representative in the House of Lords, and he was telling us about his memories and encounters with the Queen.
I think one of the most important lessons I learnt before I met the Queen for the first time as Black Rod. I'd met her on other occasions in the military before that, but the most important thing that I was told was that the Queen notices, and she does. And after every state opening of Parliament, she would always say goodbye to me or nod as I bowed as she left. And always a few days later I would get a message back through the private office, through her private office, of something she'd noticed. And one year, one of the busts of the bishops high up in a gallery in the House of Lords had been removed and was on loan. And after the state opening of Parliament, about 3 days later, I got a note from the private secretary asking where it was and why it wasn't there. So she notices and she spots points of detail. Now, you may say that's trivial and perhaps a bit pedantic almost, but it was because she took an interest. It wasn't just Black Rod who had to up his, and now it's Sarah Clarke, her game. It's the whole team. It's not just Black Rod, it's the team in the Palace of Westminster, and not just in the Palace of Westminster. These state events are huge team events. The government, the London authorities, the Metropolitan Police, the military, and so on and so on. And there are huge meetings before these events take place to make detailed plans, and it requires everybody working together. And in the Palace of Westminster, I can tell you everybody, including the scaffolders, the electricians, the cleaners, everybody took huge pride in, for example, preparing for the state opening of Parliament, and now preparing for the lying in state of the Queen in Westminster Hall. And everybody takes huge pride in it. And I remember one of the staff, one of the estate staff who was leaving, and I went to his farewell party. And I said, what are you going to miss most? And he said, I'm going to miss the state occasions. He said, it's why I've loved working here for years. Just the team effort, the spirit of the Queen is coming and we're preparing this for the Queen. And that just made a big difference and almost kept the staff going for a whole year, because all throughout the year we'd have periodic planning meetings, either for the next state opening of Parliament, lots of planning meetings for the contingency plans for the lying in state for the Queen and other events too. And that's one of the things which provides a bit of constancy in the country. You know that the royal family expect and demand and get the high standards from wherever they go and visit, whether it's the Palace of Westminster or anywhere in the country. And that I don't think would be the same if it was just any other old VIP visitor. Quite different for the monarch.
This is BBC News. I'm Lucy Hockings with the latest headlines. New details on the Queen's state funeral. It will be held in Westminster Abbey on Monday the 19th of September. King Charles has approved the day as a bank holiday. Princes William and Harry and their wives Kate and Meghan greet crowds in Windsor. And at Balmoral, the Queen's 3 younger children and their families viewed tributes to her after attending a church service. The new monarch read and signed an oath and paid tribute to the late Queen at his accession ceremony at St James's Palace. It was televised for the first time.
God save the King.
God save the King. Hundreds of people witnessed the ceremony of the proclamation on a balcony of the palace.
Prince Charles Philip Arthur George is now, by the death of our late sovereign of happy memory, become our only lawful and rightful liege lord, Charles III.
Hello and welcome. The state funeral for Queen Elizabeth will take place on Monday, the 19th of September at 11 a.m. BST at Westminster Abbey. Schools will close on the day of the funeral, giving thousands of youngsters the chance to watch the televised service and pay their respects. We've also had more details of the key events that will happen in the next week as the funeral approaches. So let me take you through them. The Queen's coffin is to leave Balmoral tomorrow, Sunday the 11th at 10 a.m. carried by 6 of the estate's gamekeepers. It will be taken to the Palace of Holyrood House in Edinburgh by road to arrive at 4 o'clock. On the afternoon of Monday the 12th, there will be a short procession of the coffin along the Royal Mile to St Giles's Cathedral, with the King and Queen Consort following on foot. A service will be held attended by members of the royal family, and the Queen will remain at St Giles's for a short period of lying at rest. In the evening, there will be a vigil. The Queen's coffin will be taken to Edinburgh Airport then at 5 o'clock on the Tuesday, the 13th of September. It will be flown to London, accompanied by the Princess Royal. It will arrive at Buckingham Palace in the evening, witnessed by King Charles and the Queen Consort. The next day, Wednesday, September the 14th, at just after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the Queen's coffin will be adorned with the crown and a wreath of flowers and travel on a gun carriage from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Hall in silence. The route will take in Queen's Gardens, the Mall, Horse Guards and Horse Guards Arch, Whitehall, Parliament Street, Parliament Square and New Palace Yard. King Charles and members of the royal family will join the procession. It's being described, though, as a small and personal procession. And during that procession, there will be guns fired at Hyde Park and Big Ben will toll. The Queen will lie in state at Westminster Hall for 4 full days after a short service by the Archbishop of Canterbury. The lying in state will end on September the 19th, the day of the Queen's funeral. The lying in state will end at 6:30 in the morning of September the 19th, the day the Queen's funeral takes place at 11 o'clock in the morning. Well, not too long ago, King Charles left Buckingham Palace and he was driven to Clarence House. It's a very short distance, just up the mile. And then, as you can see here, once again, he came out and he spent some time meeting members of the public who have come to pay their respects. You'll remember he did this yesterday at Buckingham Palace. It was very emotional. He was with the Queen Consort Camilla, and now as people continue to gather at royal residences, he, it seems, is continuing with this intention to greet people who have waited so many hours. Obviously matters to him hugely, to connect with people, as you can see here, who have showed up to remember his mother and support him. And let's just take you now to Charlotte Gallagher, who is at Buckingham Palace. It was another remarkable moment, Charlotte. How did the crowds respond?
There were cheers, almost screams really, Lucy, because some people have waited all day to see King Charles. They've been pressed against the barriers, hoping that he would do another walkabout and meet people. And it really was. People were ecstatic when he finally came out. What we heard was the car suddenly coming out of Buckingham Palace, and as soon as people saw that it had the royal standard on top of the car and he was in the car, there were just huge, huge cheers. Spoke to lots of families that have come down here today with their children. They want them to witness this historic moment, and a lot of the children have been talking about, of course, their memory of the Queen is the Jubilee and Paddington. That's how they know her, which is really, really lovely to see. And it's a Saturday night, you know, people are coming down after work, they've been working all day or they've been in town. They really wanted to come and pay their respects and also to welcome the new king. Now, these ladies, you live in London, but you decided to come down tonight, didn't you?
Yes.
And what did you think when you heard the news?
It was just a surprise, I think. I wasn't expecting it to happen this soon.
And what were your memories of the Queen?
I did actually see her once in Scotland when she opened up a new railway track there.
And had you gone especially to see the Queen at that point? And what did you make of her?
I couldn't really see her I was quite far away, but she just seemed very nice and respectful.
And it's the end of an era because we've all grown up with the Queen, haven't we? She's been in all our lives.
Yeah, she's been a constant we've only had one monarch, so she's been a constant for the last 26 years.
And of course, probably we'll never have another Queen in our lifetime. It's going to be kings now.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, it's great to have a female leading the country, but yeah, I think the others will do a good job.
And what about the atmosphere down here tonight? So many people, thousands.
Yeah, it's crammed, but yeah, I think it's very sombre. It's weird. It's a weird atmosphere in town.
Yeah. And it's the end of an era for the UK and the Commonwealth, so many people.
Yeah.
No, and why did you want to come down tonight?
Just to pay my respects, really, and because she's been there like as long as I've been alive, obviously.
Yeah, and having a king, it's such a change, isn't it? People need to remember not to say Prince Charles, say King Charles this time. Yeah. It's really lots of people saying that. It's so strange almost, having Prince Charles in your life this long and then suddenly now he's King Charles. Lots of other people coming down. Let's have a seat, grab a few more people. Excuse me. Hi, we're from BBC News. Do you want having a quick chat? Why did you come down here tonight?
Just to pay our respects to the Queen.
And are you from London?
We moved out of London a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, we've lived here for a decade. So.
And you just came down specifically to lay the flowers today?
Yes.
And how did you feel when you heard the news?
Devastated, sad for her family. Yeah.
What were your kind of memories of the Queen?
I think when I came here as a young boy with my family, and being in awe and wonder of the palace, probably. I'm really sorry I have to go.
No, that's fine. No. Lots of people coming down, trying to get to the Green Park and lay flowers. So many floral chips. In fact, they had to remove them from outside Buckingham Palace, Lisa, because there was just too many people. Thousands and thousands of people coming down here. Even Green Park Tube Station, which is the nearest tube station, you know, that very rarely stops or shuts for anything. London is open all the time, but that closed today because there were so many people. I don't know if you can see Buckingham Palace. It's very dark tonight, but the royal standard is still flying. Now, Prince Charles isn't actually in Buckingham Palace at the moment. He's just round the corner in Clarence House, so he's in the royal estate, so the flag is still flying above Buckingham Palace. And I'm sure tomorrow there's going to be even more people coming down. If on a Saturday night we're getting crowds like this, you won't be able to see, but what I can see is thousands and thousands of people still queuing to come and lay flowers for the Queen and also to welcome the Queen.
Charlotte, I got the tube into the BBC today and there were so many hundreds of people, and of course Green Park Station was closed as well. But there were so many people on the tube. I was talking to them about their memories of the Queen. And as you speak to people there today, does it feel like there's any kind of generational divide in terms of the stories and things that they're sharing, the memories that they're sharing?
Definitely. I think when you speak to people of the Queen's generation, or perhaps a bit younger, they remember her as a young woman, becoming a mother, becoming a grandmother, and they say they felt like they grew up with her. They had grandchildren around the same time. And then when you speak to younger people, especially children, they of course talk about the Jubilee, they talk about Paddington, someone else mentioned today, of course, about when the Queen, well, not the Queen, obviously, jumped out of a plane to open the London 2012 Olympics. And what's really interesting is there's people from right across the world. I spoke to a man from Germany, him and his girlfriend were on holiday in Paris this week. When they heard that Queen Elizabeth had died, they decided to change their holiday, and they've come to London. And they said they're going to stay for the rest of the week and really take in the atmosphere, because it does feel like a really momentous moment, not just for the UK, but for the world. I mean, we saw the front pages of newspapers right across the world, and Queen Elizabeth was on the front cover of practically every single one. She was the world's most famous woman. And I think a lot of people come as well, they want to pay their respects to King Charles, because he's got a really difficult task. He's obviously grieving his mum and is now taking on, probably the most high-profile job in the world.
Charlotte, lovely to have you with us and to hear some of those stories as well that you've been collecting throughout the evening. We are going to reflect on the influence of the Queen all over the world. We'll be going live to Canada shortly, actually, to bring you the views of Canadians there too. But let's bring you some other pictures and moments from the day and take you to Windsor, where the new Prince and Princess of Wales, and as you can see here, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. They appeared together. Now, it was slightly surprising, some people have said, a remarkable show of unity from both of the couples, and they spent quite a lot of time looking at floral tributes outside the castle, and then they went walking about, meeting with people, having conversations that appeared to be incredibly meaningful to them and certainly to those that are there. And our royal correspondent, Daniel.
Unexpected and unannounced, nobody had seen this coming. After the rancour and the conflict, the fallout and the friction, this was a family reunited in grief. The new Prince and Princess of Wales, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, together in Windsor to view the flowers and see those who had come to mourn the Queen. All eyes were on them. The brothers had barely spoken to each other for 2 years, but today something clearly shifted. Harry and Meghan walked down one side of the crowd on Windsor's long walk up to the castle, chatting, receiving flowers and condolences. On the other side were William and Catherine, doing much the same, particularly focusing on families and children who had come out to remember the Queen. It's hard to imagine quite how this moment came about. Perhaps the public outpouring of love for the Queen and the weight of responsibility their father now bears caused Harry and William to find a peace that had previously been hard to reach. It was an extraordinary moment of solidarity that seemed to please all those there to witness it. In her death, the Queen appears to have helped heal a damaging rift as the royal family comes together to say their farewell. Daniel Arel, BBC News.
Charles III became monarch immediately after the death of his mother, and now he has been formally proclaimed king at St James's Palace in London. It's a ceremony which dates back centuries and was televised for the first time in its history. The death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II was officially confirmed before the new monarch swore an oath. King Charles paid tribute to his late mother, saying her reign had been unequalled in dedication, duration and devotion. Our royal correspondent Nicholas Mitchell has been watching today's events.
In the setting of London's original royal palace at St James's, the Accession Council, Britain's political leaders, past and present, with other notable figures, there to pledge their allegiance to Britain's new head of state.
God save the King.
God save the King. The King joined the accession council gathered in the palace's throne room to make his declaration.
It is my most sorrowful duty to announce to you the death of my beloved mother, the Queen. I know how deeply you, the entire nation, and I think I may say the whole world, sympathize with me in the irreparable loss we've all suffered. My mother's reign was unequal in its duration, its dedication, and its devotion. Even as we grieve, we give thanks for this most faithful life. I am deeply aware of this great inheritance and of the duties and heavy responsibilities of sovereignty, which have now passed to me. In taking up these responsibilities, I shall strive to follow the inspiring example I have been set in upholding constitutional government and to seek the peace, harmony and prosperity of the peoples of these islands and of the Commonwealth realms and territories throughout the world. And in carrying out the heavy task that has been laid upon me, and to which I now dedicate what remains to me of my life, I pray for the guidance and help of Almighty God.
Concerning the security of the Church of Scotland.
The King took a centuries-old oath to preserve the position of the Church of Scotland.
I, Charles III, by the grace of God, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of my other realms and territories, King, Defender of the Faith, do faithfully promise and swear that I shall inviolably maintain and preserve the settlement of the true Protestant religion as established by the laws made in Scotland.
Watched by the heir to the throne, Prince William, Prince of Wales, and Camilla the Queen Consort, he signed the oath Charles R. Charles Rex, King. And then a moment of pageantry. From a balcony, the Garter King of Arms issued the proclamation of the new king's reign.
Whereas it has pleased Almighty God to call to his mercy our late sovereign lady, Queen Elizabeth II, of blessed and glorious memory, by whose decease the crown of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland is solely and rightfully come to the Prince Charles Philip Arthur George. We, therefore, do now hereby, with one voice and consent of tongue and heart, publish and proclaim that the Prince Charles Philip Arthur George is now, by the death of our late sovereign of happy memory, become our only lawful and rightful liege lord, Charles III.
The King's Guard gave 3 cheers.
3 cheers for His Majesty the King! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray!
Following centuries-old tradition, the proclamation was also issued in the City of London. It will be repeated in Britain's other national capitals tomorrow.
Hooray! Hip hip!
Affirming and proclaiming the reign of Charles III to all corners of his kingdom. Nicholas Witchell, BBC News.
Let's take you back to Buckingham Palace now. Rebecca Jones has been watching events unfold during the course of the day.
It has been a very busy day here for the new king. He travels straight to Buckingham Palace from St James's Palace after that accession council where he was formally proclaimed the king, and he arrived about 12:15. He left just after 6 o'clock to the delight of the crowds who have just grown and grown and grown during the course of the day. Far more people here today than there have been in the last couple of days. I should say most of them here to pay their respects to the Queen. That much was clear by the number of floral tributes that there were. Lots and lots of people clutching